James Johnson, Lonewolf Realty, used to be another brokerage and now is powered by Spyglass Realty. Exciting stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. Been there just over a month. Lots of new stuff, lots of exciting systems, putting a bunch of good stuff into place. Obviously, with the new brokerage, there comes a bunch of training, so that's always fun to sit and listen to old videos and learning new processes, new systems that the new brokerage has in place. But it's refreshing. Love seeing new perceptions on stuff, even listening to old calls, doing all that kind of training, getting up to speed on company lead processes, all that stuff. So a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of learning, and now's the time to do it while stuff's a little bit slow. So
I agree. I mean, it's one of those things I related to, we sometimes will have new employees and we're training new employees and I'm kind of watching some of the things they're going through or even, listening to the questions that they're asking. And I know the answers, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, this is kind of good training for me too. So like you said, toward the end of the year, things are slowing down and it's a good time to do it. I mean, way better than when it's busy. So, we had you on about 2 months ago. Outside of the update on the new brokerage, anything new to report as far as your business, the business?
no, not too much. Obviously, we're still with the same team. We all moved over, so that's been along the same. Doing a little bit more volunteering,
Okay.
helping my girlfriend out. She helps with a nonprofit. So been doing a little bit of that, and of course it's football season. So, 3 days a week we get to watch football. 4 days if you count college. So,
Well, I'm glad you brought up the volunteer work because this month and going into December, we've been bringing on a lot of charity organizations. And for the record, she's invited to come on or whoever wants to speak about her cause. We just had on today a gentleman, Steve, goes by Coach, who works for the a youth group out in Dripping Springs that basically takes in foster kids, but only boys between the ages of 10 and 17.
it gives them like a coach atmosphere.
Well,
Father
no, they live
figure.
there.
Okay.
It's a full-blown foster, facility and everything like that. And the episode was very, very interesting and eye-opening to me. And we are actually scheduled to go there in 2 weeks. We're bringing the camera stuff. We're going to go and do some interviews and show a little bit about what they're doing to showcase it. So
Dang.
I'm with you on the charity stuff. So
Philanthropy.
you're
Yeah.
correct. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what it is you're doing in respect to that.
So she's been working with Lovable, which is a pit bull rescue here in Austin, totally volunteer based. And so they actually just had one of their biggest fundraisers. They did a Cap City, the comedy show.
Okay.
So they did a whole night. They got out the red room, had three really, top Austin comedians go in there and talk.
Nice.
So they're here in the Austin area, but they pull from, rural shelters, euthanasia shelters, any way that they can in order to help a dog, have a second chance. So
Is there a website or anybody that anyone can connect with that's maybe at the end of the year looking and saying, hey, I want to donate some money, well, take the write-off on the P&L? How do they connect with that organization? What was the name of it again?
it's called Love a Bull. So short for pit bull.
Yeah.
They have a really popular Instagram page, like 15 or so thousand followers. So that one's really easy to find. Facebook page and a website. You can go on there. You can donate. You can buy shirts. Again, every sale that they make, all proceeds that come from that stuff, 100% all the way to the dogs.
I love that.
Yeah, they don't take any. If you want to if you want to donate,
Sure.
to a good cause and know that it's going to go to the right place.
I love that.
They're always good.
Right on.
And I'll have them. I've been talking to her more about it. We're going to try to get them on here. That way they can talk about it.
That'd be awesome.
And that kind of rolls into something else I wanted to bring up. So hopefully in the month of December, we're going to do something I've been cooking up for a little bit called Pins for Pitties. So we're going to go right over here to the Westgate Bowling Alley, rent out a bunch of lanes, and that's going to be an opportunity for us to raise money, do a little profit share with the bowling alley, get a bar tab and have a good time and raise some money. And ultimately, the goal is to hit as many pins as possible because then we're going to, do a donation based off of that.
I love that. Well, count me in and, as soon as we have
more
a date,
information
you
will
let
come.
me know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of the charity stuff myself recently. I'm happy to hear that you're doing the same. I mean, it is the time of year to be, to be doing this stuff. And one of the things that we were talking about before we kind of clicked the camera on was you are currently in the process of handling a short sale.
Yeah, first one.
Which is exciting.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to talk about it is, not only to, get to hear this story, but more importantly, this is something that is becoming very common as far as questions that are getting asked to me, because people hear short sale and they hear foreclosure and they automatically think that means good deal, right? And so that's not totally untrue, but at the same time, I definitely want to make sure that everybody understands what that looks like in terms of financing, because it's not as simple as it sounds. Um, so for starters, I mean, you're handling a short sale, which we know is when a buyer no longer, wants to continue to pay the mortgage. They basically are underwater, because if they weren't, they would just sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go to the bank instead of just throwing their hands up and saying, it's
Take
your
it.
problem
Mm-hmm.
now. They go to the bank and they ultimately say, I want a short sale on this property. And they work out an agreement on where the bank is probably going to end up taking a little bit of a hit. And the reason that you do this as a homeowner is because a short sale is not viewed as bad as a foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
It does not negatively affect you as much. It shows that you were trying to cooperate and do the right thing, but you're still unable to make good on, your original agreement. And so short sales, when individuals that are looking to buy see these are things that can be financed. These are things that can be worked with, because there aren't any kind of privacy laws or anything along those lines. Typically, because these homeowners are cooperating with the bank, they're going to let people in. They're going to let the appraiser in. They're cooperating.
Right.
Foreclosure, on the other hand, is a situation where you're dealing with an individual who's throwing up his hands saying, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not going to pay you. And in some instances, has zero intention of
Even
leaving the
leaving the
property.
property, yeah.
Sometimes these foreclosures are investment properties, and the people who are in the property aren't even the owners. But again, because of privacy laws and, just homestead situations where people are tenants that live there, if the tenants aren't going to let an appraiser in, or even you to view the property.
It might be impossible to sell it at all.
Right. Well, it's not that it might not be. It's just that we can't get financing on it, because if we can't get an appraiser in there and people aren't cooperating, then we can't deal with it. So typically these foreclosure situations, they usually become, cash.
Cash only. Yeah.
So I bring that up just because people are asking me all the time, what is it? I want to buy a foreclosure or a short sale, because just immediately, without doing any research, they just assume that means they're going to get a better deal.
They're going to get the best deal.
Which could be true, but to be quite honest, I typically find the foreclosures, yeah, you can probably get a deal if you have enough money to pay the bank in cash. Short sales, from my experience, they usually end up going for market value, simply because people see short sale and think it's a great idea, and they know that they can finance it, and it almost drives up the price.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot more people looking, I feel like, for short sales because of that, obviously, distressed seller, but one that's cooperating.
Right.
From the buyer's perspective, it's likely going to be easier to do the short sale than the foreclosure because, again, you have a seller that's cooperating. Ultimately, though, it always comes back to the lender, right? You
Sure.
can have a list price. That's a great deal, and you can write an offer and have an executed contract. But if you send it off and the lender kicks it back and says this needs to be changed, then it's kind of at that point you're in the lender's hands. And that's what we've started to learn, obviously, communicating with loan servicers, not lenders like yourself,
Right.
but the people actually servicing the loan. It's a lot of time wasted, on waiting for emails to get back and forth, phone calls to get back and forth. And a lot of people don't know that. They think it's going to be quick, cheap, and easy. And usually it might be cheap, but it's not going to be quick and it ain't going to be easy.
Right.
So, yeah, you got to learn from it, and you got to learn how to do it before you just jump in. I'm fortunate to have good people around me that are helping me through it and leading me along the right path in the process. Shout out Spyglass Realty because,
Yeah.
we're really able to lean on each other. So there's a ton of agents that have a lot of experience with it. And so they're kind of helping me along. And
Are you, as the real estate agent, finding that you were getting, in comparison to some of your other listings, because of it being a short sale, were you finding or feeling like you were getting more showings on that property than others, or was it similar to any other listing that you had?
so, yeah, we listed it pretty well below what the market value was. And we had 6 showings in the first week.
Okay.
And I actually just signed the contract for it.
So it went under contract in 1 week.
Yeah, so we were listed before with our own brokerage,
Mhm.
took it down for a little bit, did a little bit of cleaning up out there just to try to help the site for sore eyes, right, with the stuff that's on it. And then when we relisted it at a better price, yeah, we were under contract in a week.
Now we know that this property has to be, we've basically, you have written an offer with a potential buyer and you've presented it to the lender, or not the lender, but
The
the servicer, and you're waiting for their response. If they accept, this particular offer, in your professional opinion, do you feel like from an appraisal standpoint that this buyer is getting it for under appraised value, or do you feel like they're getting it right at what is in current market? Or
So if the lender pushes it to go, what market value is should land somewhere around 280. That was a really solid comp just next door. That's that. We were listed at around 250, and we're under contract for a little bit less than that. So if they're able to get it where they are, they're going to get a steal on it, and it's going to overappraise.
Okay.
So they shouldn't run into that issue there. Of course, it comes down to property condition. The property actually wasn't in that bad a shape. The guy's situation just kind of unraveled, but the house itself was actually in really good shape. It's got some clutter and stuff that needs to be taken out, but it's not like there's a roof caving in or, walls falling down, nothing like that. So I think it, shouldn't have an issue with appraising.
And what's the current dollar figure that it's owed to the bank today?
Am I able to say that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a number.
Yeah, just like
We haven't given an address. We haven't talked about a person.
So he owed just north of 330.
Okay, so we owe 330. Current market value, in your opinion, is maybe 280 at top of market.
285 at
285,
the top.
and we're currently under contract at 250.
232.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But again, everybody's on the same page that it's going to have to go to the lender.
Yeah.
And the seller, obviously, he wants to make it happen.
So are we expecting a counter?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simply because their other option is take it to auction and have a shot at getting market value there, right? So then it just comes to, in my eyes, for our best chance of success, we write it quick, we write it clean, and least amount of headache for the lender, because their other option is long, drawn out, and uncertainty on whatever that number is.
Yeah, and that gets expensive.
Right.
I mean, they're losing daily interest every single day while you have a current client who, is not paying. And yeah, I get it. So, okay. I mean, I think that's helpful for people who are, looking at because the other part we didn't mention, because I've been a part of these, the bank, they take whatever time they want in terms of response.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen these short sales. We've closed them in as quickly. The fastest one I think we've ever done, waiting on bank response and everything, was about 6 weeks. And then I've seen them take 90 days, 4 months sometimes. And again, that's all because the bank is like, they operate at their speed. So if you as a buyer are thinking about purchasing a short sale and you see that it's bank owned, according, based on some of the things we've talked about, you may get a deal, but it's going to take a heck of a long time.
You got to be patient. Yeah.
You got to be patient. It's, well, that's great information, man.
I'm learning, that's part of being in real estate, is learning every day. So I'm excited to be doing the first one. Don't know if it'll be the last, but for now, we're just trying to learn as much as we can and take care of everybody.
Well, I like that you said that too, because one of the things that we talk about a lot on this podcast, especially with newer agents, which you're not a newer agent, but I just mean newer agents in general, there's this whole thing about imposter syndrome in terms of like a lot of the reason why people don't want to come on this podcast is because they're afraid they're going to say something stupid, or you run into situations where people are afraid just in general to be on camera or social media because they're fearful that someone's going to say, oh, who's she or who's he to do this when they've only been in the business X amount of years. And I want to just kind of commend you for being like, hey, you know what? I am a licensed agent. I've got, multiple years in this. You've got a ton of transactions under your belt. You're embarking on something that isn't rocket science for you. I mean, you're qualified to take this on, but it is new to you. And you're like, look, we're going to do it best we can. And if I don't know the answer, I got a team full of people who do. And I think that's great, because one of the things I find in this business that I don't think is talked about enough, I say this to all of my new hires. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I think it takes maybe a year or two to learn about 70 to 80% of the business. and you are constantly learning that other 20.
Yeah, you'll never get to 100 because every day
Right.
there adds a 0.0001% of new information. Yeah, so to be there's the saying, it's like if somebody deals in absolutes, it's probably somebody that you can't trust. If anybody says they know everything and there's no doubt, that's somebody to watch out for, because quite literally you could never know everything.
Right. And you run into agents and lenders and professionals that always want to beat their chests about the years of being in business as if that means they know everything. And there's definitely, I mean, I mentioned how long I've been in the business just because I mean it in almost the reverse end of the spectrum, where I'm like,
You failed more times than anybody else.
not only failures, but like I have seen so many damn transactions, and I am still constantly running into situations where I'm like, well, you know what? I've never seen that one before.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you're like, yeah, man, I'm learning, I'm doing this. We're going through the, the process. And I just think that being honest with yourself is like super important, because we always want to act like
You
we
have to
know
be
everything.
kind to yourself too, right?
Right.
When you do stumble, when you do fail, a great learner and a great leader understands that it's a failure and acknowledges it, and then tells himself, okay, what's the correction? Okay, let's go execute. But if you condemn yourself and, make it like this failure is now your identity, well, then you'll never grow and you won't ever learn what you set out to learn in the first place.
Well said.
You have to plant that seed, you got to water it, you got to learn, stumble, fall, get back up, stumble, fall, and then eventually you'll figure it out, and then you'll be walking a straight path. So.
Love it. Love it. I know that you had brought in some visuals that you wanted me to put up on the screen here. I believe you had intentions of going over some market analysis stuff. So
Yeah,
we'll get into that, and it's right there on the on the screen there. And let me know when you need me to scroll.
for sure. So the top one, and for some reference and for kind of set and setting, this graph is pertaining primarily to the South Austin area, south of downtown, 35 and west to Mopac. Covers a little bit of Oak Hill area, and then down to kind of the lower, South Park Meadows. So really just this southwest pocket of Austin, but it's the area that I live in. So for me, it's obviously the most important to learn about. And so I just wanted to go over a few things, so that way if anybody's watching it thinking about, hey, what are prices doing? How is the market, here in this area? Should we be buying? Should we be selling, et cetera? So the market stats here from the last 12 months. And if you can scroll down
You got a little more. There we go.
So you can see that the green line is the original price median, and then the blue is the close price.
Original price being like what a house was listed at, and then what it actually went for. Got it.
Because there's which the next graph and one of the other graphs is you'll see the comparison to list price to close price. That's very important to pay attention to. But the thing that tells the most about the market is how far did it come down from the time that it was originally listed to the day that it was sold. For me, that's what's most important, because that shows you the full, what we're considering the market, leveling out, normaling out. This is where you can actually see in real time, hey, it was originally listed at this, and this is what it took to sold. So prices kind of across the board are staying pretty steady over the last 12 months. They're not really dropping or raising that much. You could see, obviously, in the summer, it got closest to where those lines touched, basically meaning that homes that were listing at their original price had a good shot at selling. Usually in the summer, that's when it picks up.
So basically, when your consumer, your listing person selling is kind of in reality with
and prices it correctly,
right?
And usually that's the ones that
so
go
we had a
quicker.
big disconnect in January of 2023 from what sellers thought their houses were worth versus what they were actually worth.
People thought that the spring was going to turn it around, and they were still pricing the properties based on January of 21, and obviously those are two insanely different markets. And so there was a reality check for a lot of folks. And the one that for me is most important, obviously, is the most recent November. We've only had 2 days, so let's disregard that one. But if we're looking in October, that's the next biggest gap that we have.
Yeah.
People were still trying to list in Never Land, and the market and the buyer demand really checked them, obviously, because that number dipped the most.
What do you think changed between like June, where it seems like people kind of went, okay, we're back to reality. We kind of know, because the thing that I like about this chart, you can see that in January, property values, I mean, they kind of did dip down, and this is what everybody was waiting for. Like, I'm waiting for property values to fall. Okay, well, they did. And I hope if you were that guy sitting on the fence, if you timed it correctly, you bought a home in January.
Mm-hmm.
Because ever since then, all we're doing is seeing property values increase since January of 2023. And this is a statistic that we know. And another statistic that we know is that the last time we saw property values actually fall, as soon as they started to tick back up, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a rocket ship in terms of
Mm-hmm.
pricing increase.
But even 1%
It took
positive.
12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were timing the market to get the very best rate,
You had about
or
3
not rate,
months.
excuse me, yeah,
Best price.
price, I hope that you bought in January. Because
Yeah.
if you didn't, you missed it.
And you're back, you know, and
Right.
obviously we saw the dip in October. I expect,
But
you
not
know,
back to January.
right, yeah, definitely not back there. I think kind of as we go through the last few months of winter, we'll still start to, you know, see those closed prices come down a little bit. Listings are still sitting. Typically in the yearly cycle, you know, fall into winter is slow on its own.
Right.
So we're going to have a ton of listings and not a ton of active buyers. And so that is hopefully going to help prices continue to come down and help some of that affordability, right? That's what Austin is most infamous for, is not being affordable. This is it seeing it in real time of, hey, these sellers are going to have to come down off their high horse
Yep.
because real buyers need to buy real homes at a fair price.
Do you find that people, toward the end of the year, if they don't get what they want, they just pull it and list next year?
Depends on their situation.
Yeah.
If they want to move and if they don't have family and stuff pending, or maybe they have other properties, you know, then they'll leave it. But if they're like, we don't really need to sell right now, we can wait until the spring, that may be a better shot at getting, you know, that spring freshness in, you know, have a few months for everybody to, you know, forget about the house. And then when it comes in, it'll be fresh and new. Typically spring activity kicks up a little bit, right? Nobody wants to move around the holidays. So it can be either way, but it's really about whatever the seller's life is telling them in that given
Gotcha.
moment.
And then when we scroll down here, we've got another one where
So this is where we're looking at now, average price. The median tells you what the number 50 home out of 99, right? So
sure.
number one home, number, you know, 99, it's number 50.
I remember that math class.
Right. And so for average, now we're actually, you know, putting them all together and dividing them by the number. So our averages are going to be much higher because we're in a price point. Obviously, the Zilker area.
So this is what the media is looking at, this chart.
It's both, right?
Right. Because this one looks a little different.
It looks a little different. And that's because there are homes that are well into the $1 million
Yep.
in the area. And so that obviously drives the average up. So, you know, when you're looking at statistics, know whether or not you're in the median or average. But obviously, you can still see a similar trend. Around June, it got the closest, but obviously January, we had a huge, you know, delta between the two. And obviously in October, we did, you know, almost looks like 100 plus thousand difference between original
And so when we
price.
talk about that average, I mean, we talked about the median. Is there a purchase price that you feel like is creating that huge gap? Is it the lower dollar figures or is it the $1 million figures? I mean, just from your professional experience, the only way you're going to get a gap like that in terms of averages, you know, we talked
Is if
about
you have a
where
lot to
are
give.
you in the, you know,
in the price
in the
spectrum.
price point, and I would envision it's probably those higher dollar figure homes, but you're the pro.
For sure, yeah. So I mean, if it's over $1 million or 1.5, you know, 100,000 is a much smaller cut than
In terms of percentages.
right? Yeah. So I mean, even at $1 million, 100,000 is 10%. If you're at 500,000, that's 20%. Huge difference.
Yeah, big time.
So they have much more room to wiggle. And what we need to remember too is a lot of folks in South Austin have owned their homes for a long time. So they could have listed it for what market value was, but even if they come down 100,000, they still have a ton of equity.
Still getting paid.
They're still getting paid, right? And so usually as you get over $1 million, they're willing to come down more because at the end of the day, they want to sell for some reason and they have the wiggle room. On the very low end price points, you know, we have a lot less wiggle room to go with. Typically, those people may not have owned their homes as long. Maybe they have and they still have the ability to come down 30, 40, 50,000, but obviously the more expensive the home is, the more wiggle room that they have.
Right on. Are we moving to the next chart?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to the last one. This is where we can really see the ratios of the two charts above. And so you can scroll
Sorry.
together, we can see the median. So we're back in the median. That means we're at the middle of the list.
Yep.
The top line is the close price to list price. Obviously, you can see that number looks a lot better in terms of market health, right?
Correct.
Oh, we're above 98%. Stuff is selling for what it's listed for. But in reality, if we're looking at original list price, I mean, December, we were at 92%. So that means if it was listed for 1 million,
Right.
it would have sold for 920,000. That's a big gap that's not seen. Again, November, let's disregard because we're only 2 days. Probably some one-off deal that somebody got a huge steal, 85%
Yeah.
of closing. But even going into August and October, you can see there's still that big gap. So there is a huge opportunity to get into a home for 90% of market value. And if you were at 80, you'd be a wholesaler. So if you're looking to buy, now's a great time because you have the opportunity to get something for 5, maybe 10% off of what it's actually worth, or at least what somebody would have listed it for in the past. Because the way I look at it, people list based off of their comps. That means that somebody somewhere found a property that was listed for that much. At some point, somebody paid that amount of money. So it is within a reasonable assumption that at some point in the future, you should be able to list for that too. If you think about it that way, if the home was worth $1 million in 21, you get it for 800 now. If stuff turns back around, that it could go for $1 million sometime in the future. So now's a great time to buy. If you have the ability to, if you can afford to get into something, just because there's the opportunity to get a good deal.
What's interesting is I look at those charts and I notice like the best time to get kind of what we're talking about, like a property well under asking price, AKA a deal. You can see that it's really in like January, February, or it's like November and December, kind of colder months toward the beginning of the year and toward the end of the year. And what's interesting about that to me is I've bought multiple properties and I've never tried to like time the market based on season, but I have bought every single one of my properties in those months. And the reason I say this is because I am a big believer that buying a home is a lot about whatever your appetite is in terms of purchasing, right? So for me, because I've been in this business for so long and done so many transactions, although I'm not buying every single one of them, I feel very much a part of them. And I'm very desensitized to homes in general, right? I'm basically looking at every home as a math problem. I look at homes very much as an investment, a little less of the emotional side.
A lot of numbers on paper.
Right. And so if you are a buyer who thinks that way and is like, you know what? Yes, I know it's a home, 4 walls, a roof. I'm going to create some memories and so on and so forth. But what's really important to me is, the deal. I didn't even think about this till now. I've never bought a home that aren't in the months that we just talked about, right? Now, that doesn't mean that, like, I'm smarter than anybody or better than anybody or
Sometimes
anything
that's
like
how
that.
it works out.
Well, I think the reason it works out is because I'm not
hungry all the time for.
No, it's different. I think that the reason that I buy in those months is because, again, like I don't get emotionally invested in these things. Where if you notice the worst time, if you will, in terms of getting a deal appears to be in those summer months. And from what I've experienced, I find that people in terms of appetite are very much more concerned about getting exactly what they want. I had a real estate agent say to me that right now there's only 2 types of buyers out there. Buyers that are looking for a deal and buyers that are looking for a diamond. And a diamond being like something very, very specific that they're looking for. Whether it's like we have to have 4 bedrooms. We have to have this specific layout. It has to be in this zip code, right? And if that's what's important to you, I typically find that those people buy in the spring and the summer because that's usually when we see the most inventory. Where now we have reduced inventory in terms of like an annual basis. And this is when your buyer who needs something specific, I usually hear the objection like, yeah, I want to buy a home, but there's just nothing out there. The guy that's looking at it as a math problem, he's like, yeah, I don't care if the walls are currently painted pink. Like, we'll figure that out later. Like, this makes sense on paper. So that's kind of my call to action to any buyer out there. If you're the original person I talked about, where you need it to make sense on paper and you're not looking at colors and layouts and whatever. I mean, that's been me. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's about appetite.
I would even say, too, for both people in this scenario, now could be a good time because in terms of inventory, historically, yeah, we're still pretty low. But in comparison to the peak months, we're 2 times of what we had then, in the Austin metro.
Okay.
So there's a lot of options, and you may very well find that diamond that you're looking for because somebody overlooked it because it wasn't painted the right colors. And you can spot something that nobody else can because it's specific to you. Now being that, we're going into the winter, obviously people stop listing their homes, so we may not be getting new listings, but at the current time, we're, just over 8,000 total in the Austin metro.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of options for you to go out and try to find something that you really love. Oh, and also it's going to make sense on paper, right? You're going to be able to have a lot to pick from, even if you're somebody who's leasing. There's quite a bit of leases out right now. Obviously, as we get into the winter, people are going to move a little bit differently, but there's a lot of options out there for the common buyer. You just got to get out there and you got to look for them.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I just, as we talk about with anything, you can't get everything you want. You're usually making it, what's the saying is like, there's no such thing as compromise. There's only, there's no such thing as solutions. There's only compromises.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not going to check all your boxes. In a good scenario, you're going to have an 85 to 90% perfect home. And that may be a reason for you to, keep working hard at your job, to not get complacent, to get to the one. Because unless you have an infinite budget and you're able to build your perfect home, you're not going to get as close. And odds are, even if you did that, you're going to move in, you're going to be like, I wish we had this. I wish we had this. So if you find something that's 85, 90% of what you're really looking for, that's a good opportunity to get into something, especially right now whenever you're not going to be competing with a bunch of folks.
Well, and it's easy to say, but I'll say it now. Kudos to those of you that purchased in January of 2023. Based on statistics right now, you got the best deal. So you can go to the bar or Thanksgiving and tell everybody that Matt Kirschling with Goldstar Mortgage showed me a chart. Turns out I'm a genius. I've timed the market.
I timed it perfect. Yep.
That's still to be said, right? It's always changing, but
it's always changing.
But for right now, and statistically, we probably won't see a better deal than what you got in January for another decade. Yeah. So the other thing that I, just moving on, that kind of wanted to cover, I wanted to tell kind of a short story, about something I'm seeing in the business lately, and then kind of get your opinion on it. So we know that real estate agents right now are a little slow, and we know that every single deal that they get is like, you can't afford to lose it, right? I mean, everything is super important, more important than ever. And I've been running into situations where I've been seeing agents do things that they normally wouldn't do in terms of like the sales process, because they're fearful of rocking the boat and losing that buyer, right? And so I'm seeing a lot of agents that are reaching out to me to put together loan scenarios for a client that I have never talked to and not allowed to talk to because he's not ready to talk to a lender yet. And what I've identified about that is we want to do everything we can to get these clients excited about purchasing and doing all of the things. However, me and the agent are spending a lot of time putting together scenarios, making everything happen. And what ends up happening is finally the client is ready. He's convinced. He has found a home. He's shopping without a pre-approval, which we know like a year or two ago was like kind of a no-no, right? I have never talked to this client. I never have even emailed, nothing. And then finally he or she contacts me and says, hey, I'm ready to move forward. Let's get approved. We get under contract, and then immediately they're like, hey, I'm going to contact a whole bunch of other people. And the reality is that the reason why they're doing that is because I have successfully given them all the information that they need by playing telephone through an agent. I've established no relationship, zero credibility, and spent a ton of time to get a buyer excited about purchasing a home. And of course, people that don't know the person that they're dealing with, no relationship, don't know them, don't trust them, certainly don't like them, never talk to them.
There's no loyalty.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is I thought about it and I'm like, well, what does a real estate agent care? Like, mission accomplished. So the first question I have for you is, as a real estate agent, have you ever had a situation where you were working with a client, you had an established relationship with that lender, and then they switch gears and it creates problems? Has that ever happened?
For sure, yeah. And I've had it where I had the lender get switched, and I've even had it where I've gotten switched.
Right.
And that's a real gut blow. And when you experience one of those, it kind of checks yourself to understand, when that happens to your lender on it, to know what that feels like. And the thing that for me is going to be the most practical thing to do is obviously what's best for the client.
Sure.
And that doesn't always mean, the best percentage rate, right? I mean, there is a lot of opportunity cost in buying a home in the wrong way and in the wrong process, in the wrong fashion, right?
Sure.
If you do it the wrong way, you may not be set up, and that could be a greater cost than the nickels and pennies that you're worried about, whenever you're shopping a bunch. Whenever you go to start making offers, if you have a very strong approval with one lender and then you make an offer and then you decide to now shop it, that's going to send a signal to the seller and to the listing agent, okay, well, something's changing. The situation that we initially agreed to and, the set of facts that we were operating on are now different.
Right.
And that little bit, can spark something and can snowball into something else. Now, me personally, in my experience, it sucks, right? To put a lot of time and to put a lot of effort and do your best to show your value.
Yeah.
And then have somebody just basically go with somebody else off of a whim or off of, something that they hadn't thought about before, et cetera. And so when you do that, it disrupts a lot of the flow. And oftentimes when that switch happens, you don't even end up finishing the deal. You may not even end up buying a house because the system that you had in place that got you to the point where you were just about to buy the house is now completely different. If you fall out of contract there, the chances of you getting back under contract, I feel like have to be low.
Yeah.
I don't have any science to, no stats
Sure.
to prove that, but there's just, whenever you make that switch, you and yourself are already taking a second place, and now you're going to be dealing with a different person. You're going to be searching in a different way, and you're not going to have all your ducks in a row like you did before.
Because I've talked to agents, real estate agents before, who have said, given the choice, I would prefer that my buyer work with the lender that I basically have a relationship with, not because of any other reason other than I know that it's going to be what's best for my client as far as experience and making sure that what is accomplished, which is closing and closing on time and not closing ugly, is going to be the case. And what's interesting about that is I think I could put 10 lenders in a room and all of them would say, gosh, if I could have, every one of my buyers work with insert loan officer name at whatever company, that would make every single transaction and my life so much easier. But what I have found when I interview agents, especially lately, I've had real estate agents go, man, you guys have a really, really tough job. I have a preferred lender, or some brokerages even have an in-house lender. And they're like, I send them clients, and then when we get under contract, I feel terrible because every single one of my buyers just turns around and shops them, and I end up having to work with a different mortgage company. And I feel terrible because, the lender writes the approval, gets under contract, and then they go with another company. Well, what I've identified is that this is my public service announcement to you real estate agents. If you are doing what I just described, and being a translator, if you will, between the lender and the buyer, because you feel as though you're keeping your buyer on the hook because your buyer's saying, hey, I don't want to talk to a lender yet. And all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure if you truly wanted to go to your preferred lender. And you're definitely setting your lender up for failure because we have established zero credibility, zero relationship, and zero trust with that buyer because you are not allowing us to
Have that
create value,
conversation. Mm-hmm.
right? And so, yeah, okay, well, they finally called them and we got approved. And then the same day, my lender got an approval out. The fallout on that is exponential. And when you're the real estate agent going, oh, I feel so terrible. Because I've had, real estate agents be like, oh, I think that the in-house lender we're working with is just really expensive. And that might be the case. But the reason why your buyer is shopping is because they see zero value in that lender, because in their minds, all they've done is
Get numbers.
no, just you took an application and they said, here's your pre-approval.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, all the information that was being regurgitated from your real estate agent came from that lender with zero credit, zero relationship, and zero, trust built. And we're just dead in the water.
And I think that is going to happen a lot too with agents who, what they say, fly by the seat of their pants. They're just kind of being reactive.
It's like a scarcity mindset.
And they're just being reactive to what the buyers are telling them and what the buyers are doing. That's another, big thing that has been great about coming to Spyglass is when you put a system into place, you're able to deliver a high quality of service.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put it in place for your, for your partners, for your vendors, people that you work with that make your job easy, it also gives them a better experience, So that's why, it's important for me whenever I get a new buyer, hey, once you're serious, once it's, time to start getting our ducks in a row, we're going to talk to the lender the very first thing, and that's your conversation to have. I'm your advisor. You're the decision maker, right? So you're going to be the one to have the conversations, talk about the payments, because, the only thing that I'm telling you is what somebody else told me.
Right.
I'm not the one plugging into the computer. I'm not the one looking at your facts, your credit, your income. I have no say or authority on any of that. So me telling you anything is, technically me operating outside of my competence, right? I shouldn't be doing that. So for me, that's why it's important to get them to you first, or to get them to that, preferred lender first, because when they start that conversation, they may save you headache anyways. Because if you're just asking questions and getting stuff, you may run yourself ragged for somebody that if they did a soft pull on the credit because they got their name and their email, you could have figured out that they owed $50,000 in bad debt or had a foreclosure 6 months ago and they didn't tell you about it, right? You're going to do all this pre-work to get under contract and then try to shop a lender, and you're going to run yourself ragged and you're going to have a buyer that can't even buy.
Yeah. I mean, and in addition to that, I mean, even if everything does get under contract, I mean, for your buyer to switch gears, you've got 30 days left. You don't know who this lender is. They're not returning your phone calls. You've got questions. You're like, damn it, I really wish that the person I wrote this pre-approval with was the one doing the loan. I'm telling you, as a real estate agent, you only have yourself to blame if you were unable to get that lender in front of the buyer prior to like the day before writing the offer. Because here's my analogy to you. Can you imagine if I was calling you every day and going, hey, James, I've got these buyers. They're looking at a few properties. I've been driving them around. We've been going to open houses. We've been looking at stuff. I'm showing them some of the things to look out for and some of the things to not look out for. But on the third-party finance agreement, can you give me an explanation? Because here's what I'm looking at on the contract, but I'm not sure. And you're like, yeah, sure, Matt. And you answer a couple questions for me. I'm like, all right, great. I'm going to get back to these buyers. And you're like, Matt, what are you doing? I'm like, they're not ready to talk to a real estate agent just yet.
But we're going to write an offer on a property.
And I'm like, when we're ready to write an offer, I'm going to call you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then 2 days go by, and I'm like, hey, calling you about John and Julie again. So they were looking at this property over on 123 Main Street, and they were kind of concerned because they were looking at something like this. Like, what do you typically see as far as foundations on, like, the east side of Austin? Like, are there any issues? And you're like, yeah, that side's kind of a lot of clay and everything. And I'm like, okay, so, like, what's your take on that? And you're like, Matt,
what are we doing here?
What are we doing here? Why are you not getting me involved in this? And I'm like, don't worry about it, James. As soon as they're ready to write a contract,
I'll let you know.
I'm going to let you know, right? So then 2 more days go by. It's Sunday at 6 o'clock. I'm like, James, hey, it's Matt. John and Jane want to go ahead and finally write a contract, and it's on 123 Main Street. I need you to hurry because I guess they're already in multiple offer situations, but go ahead and write this up and do all of this for me. And you're like, I've never even talked to these people. It's like, no, it's cool. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to write an offer at 20% under list. So it's a $500,000 property,
400.
but they want to write it 400,000. So like, can you write this up real quick? And you're like, Matt, that's never going to get under contract. And I'm like, I know, but like, listen, I've told them that, but like, this is what they really want to do. So like, can you just really quick call them? I know it's 7:00 on a Sunday and everything like that, but just call them real quick. Like, let's just write this offer and see what happens, and we'll renegotiate it. Maybe like maybe the sellers will counter and everything. And you're like, but Matt, like, we could offend these sellers. Like, this is not the best way to do it. I'm like, look, I
That's
get
what they
it,
want.
and you're like, can you please just let me talk to them? And I'm like, I'm trying, James. I'm really, really trying. How crazy does that sound to you? Wouldn't that make you
Insanity.
insane?
Yeah.
Dude, I deal with that at least 2 or 3 times a month. This is what you real estate agents are doing to your lenders. Exactly what I just described. And when I flip it like that and you have this ghost buyer and like all you know is their names and you're begging me for an email or a phone number and I'm like, they're not ready yet. How freaking crazy does that sound?
When you're looking at it from the opposite perspective, it just makes me want to laugh because what the hell, like what are we talking about, right? Why?
I mean, I'm sure you've seen agents do what I'm describing.
Yeah,
Like,
and I feel like the people that are doing that are people who, again, don't have their system in place. They don't have people that they work with. They don't have any sort of consistency, so they don't know where they're going to go, and they're just being an order taker, right? They're
right.
letting a buyer drag them everywhere. Hey, give me this, give me this, give me this. When you're taking charge and when you have your system in place and you're following it, that they're going to get the same result, but they're going to be better for it, and you're also going to have more years on your life.
But James, you don't understand. I need to convince them, like, how much should we write an option, do you think? And then I'm going to take it back. So let me, what about earnest money? Like, can you tell me what we should write in earnest? And then with earnest money, like, should we do inspection for this or that? Like, what about, and you're just like, bro.
Give me 5 minutes.
Right.
That's all
like,
I need, 5 minutes.
Can't do it. Can't do
There's
it.
like 5 important parts of an offer for the most part.
Yeah.
Give me 5 minutes.
Right.
And
No, James, you don't understand. They don't want to talk to a real estate agent yet.
they want to buy a house without one.
Right. Well, no, they want to use a real estate agent.
They're just not
when
ready
they,
to talk.
But like, how can I convince them to talk to a real estate agent when like they have questions for a real estate agent? It's ridiculous. So that right there has been something that I've been seeing way more lately.
Well, if you're an agent doing that, just get a system in place.
Right.
Get somebody that you know, like, and trust, and stick to your guns.
Right on, man. Anything else you want to cover? Any public service announcements, topics like that are coming up a lot lately?
So what's your take on the lawsuit?
I feel like I know way more about this than I probably should, just because I'm sitting with agents on a regular basis and I feel compelled to like do the work and do the research. So I actually said this morning. I think there are 2 things when I look at this as like a philosophical type of debate.
Macro, from
that,
the top down.
Right, that are kind of damning to NAR and like Keller Williams. And that is, it's very difficult to argue. Like, I know the semantics behind it, but when you paint it the way I'm about to paint it, it's a little damning, where you have a salesperson going into a home and negotiating his or her commissions while also negotiating the commissions of another salesperson who isn't in the picture yet, but is negotiating these commissions for the buy-side agent. It's very difficult to argue that the listing agent and the buyer's agent aren't working together if that's the case. So like in my business, if someone were to negotiate interest rates, closing costs, down payment amounts, programs, and then say, okay, Matt, everything is sold. All I need you to do is find somebody who, is interested in taking on this loan and we'll close it. That's a partner.
Mm-hmm.
That's a partner, right? That is not So in real estate, the whole idea behind what y'all are doing is that you need buyer's representation because the listing agent represents the seller and the buyer's agent represents the buyer. But from a financial standpoint, it certainly doesn't look that way. Now, I'm embedded in this industry enough to know that that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But on paper, it certainly appears that it's like that. So I can see from a law standpoint how a jury could be
believe
convinced
that.
that there's a conflict of interest there.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I thought was pretty damning that I didn't even think about is, as a real estate agent and, getting licensed and being a realtor. Is it realtor?
Mm-hmm.
Realtor?
Realtor.
Realtor, relator.
Not rela.
Right. I'm just making fun of
Real
myself because
something.
I've been checked a few times because I am so dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that word. So being part of the, of the National Association of Realtors, it gets you access to the MLS, which is the listing system that allows you as a real estate agent to view real-time properties, what they're for sale for, and all of this other stuff. But what it also allows you to view that the public doesn't get to see is the negotiated commission for the buyer's agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can definitely see how on paper and to a jury, it is a little bit of a steering problem when if you have 10 homes listed and 8 of them are offering 3% commission on the buy side and 2 of them are offering 2% on the buy side, human nature is going to make you kind of say, I really like the deal on this property here versus this one, because in the back of your mind, this one's paying 3% and this one's paying 2%.
Right.
So not negotiating a set commission with your buyer up front poses the potential for steering buyers towards homes with higher commission rates.
Right.
So I could see how things are where they are. Do I think sellers are entitled to reimbursements? I don't. Flipping things over to the real estate agent side, I think it's absolutely ridiculous for any buyers to claim ignorance that they didn't understand that commissions are negotiable. I think it's absolutely ridiculous for any any sellers to, state that real estate agents told them that 6% was, an industry standard and it was required. I think that's silly. Ask questions. Your contracts explicitly state what everybody's being paid. It even states in the contract that you should consult an attorney if you want additional.
Right. They've
you
had
can
a
seek
lot
outside
of
counsel.
consumer protection in place for a long time for this reason.
Right.
It for sure is damning, obviously, to realtors and to real estate agents out there who do operate above board. And not that you hope that there are those out there, but you hope that the people who were affected were may have been affected by somebody who was not operating in good faith, right? That's what you hope. But the way that they paint it is every realtor is going to rake you over the coals because they want to put money in somebody else's pocket.
Right.
And my thought is, I would imagine that more sellers would be willing to pay buyer's agent finder's fee and have that negotiated with the listing agent because that is part of marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, we can't fix price, and 100% it's always negotiable, but you obviously have to market your property, and part of that is what you're paying somebody else to go out and find you a buyer.
Right.
Somebody else is going to go out of their way to go and find a buyer to come and buy your place.
Yeah, because if the listing agent could find a buyer, he would.
He would.
I mean, why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Right?
And it's almost as if they want to now phase out buyer agent commissions. And what's that going to do? Well, that's going to phase out buyer's agents. And we're going to go back in time where you have unrepresented buyers going in because they don't want to have to pay out of pocket, or they don't trust, or the seller won't even talk to them unless they don't have an agent that they have to pay for. And then you're going to get into positions where buyers are being taken advantage of because the listing agent represents the seller and they can't give any concessions to them legally.
What if the paradigm shifted? What if, I'm just messing around here.
Yeah, wave our magic
Right.
wand.
What if it became commonplace to list your house without a listing agent. And buyer's agents went around to buyers and got their buyer's agreements signed. And you didn't even get representation as a seller. Because this is what cracks me up. Listing agents beat their chests like they're the ones doing the work. They find the people who want to sell homes, right? But
that's only half the battle.
Well, not only is it only half the battle, but like if you want to sell your home and we're blatantly, I mean, we just said it, like, okay, I want to sell my home. I find a real estate agent. They list it. Well, if the listing agent had buyers, then what do we really need the listing agent for? Isn't it debatable that the homes sell themselves, especially in a low inventory market?
Mm-hmm.
So in a low inventory market where homes are selling themselves, why are sellers not listing for sale by owner to attract buyers and giving commissions only on the buy side?
For people bringing them
deals. And then once their house and offer is accepted, reaching out to listing agents after the fact and doing negotiated commissions on representation on the list side. Because at that point, you could even just contact an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say this, I love y'all agents, but like if the market flipped that way and I had the choice with a deal has already been accepted, a buyer's agent has brought me a buyer, I'm willing to pay 3% buy side commission, and now I'm able to negotiate my list side commission, right? Like, I'm just going to call an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And an attorney's not going to charge me 3%.
They're just going to write the deal.
And I know they're like, well, Matt, the marketing, the this, the that. Well, the whole lawsuit really came about because people said, why are we paying buy side commissions when they don't really do anything? Well, if homes are selling themselves, well, we marketed your property. Did you really market a property correctly that sold in a couple days?
Yeah, you hit a bunch of I mean, obviously there is
playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, without going too far. I mean, it does matter what your listing agent is capable of, right?
Sure.
If every home sold for a fixed price, then, there wouldn't be any real estate agents at all. But that's not the case. A agent's ability to market and sell your property on both the list side and the buy side is important. And yeah, I mean, if everybody could do it that way, that would, be best case scenario. They would all be for sale by owners. And obviously we don't have that because for sale by owners have a really hard time selling because it's a homeowner and not somebody who is a professional at selling real estate.
Right.
Right. And that's what you pay for. You pay for somebody who knows how the process works, who's going to keep you protected, and who's going to go to bat for you. Right. That's what you're paying for. And that's why it's important for us to, one, show our value, but two, to give our value. Right. If you're an agent that's not living up to the standard and not doing everything in your power to either be the best listing agent or buyer's agent for your clients, well, then, yeah, you probably don't deserve the full 3%. Every agent's going to say that they should, but unless you're really giving your buyer that much value, then, you shouldn't be. And I do think it's going to force buyer's agents and buyers to do a little bit more interviewing and make sure that they're having somebody who is, well and competent and a good agent. And that's where it's going to be on us to be able to provide them that. Because it very well may get where we do have to come up with a commission at the very beginning. And yeah, we will seek it from the listing agent. But if there's a difference, you're agreeing up front to pay me this, that's a very real possibility. And it's what we have been doing.
Right.
There's a lot of, how to say it, a lot of just go with the flow,
yeah.
I feel like, because when stuff was haywire, again, all you had to do is hit list and the house sold itself. If you talked to the right person the right day, you could help them buy a house. It was just way too easy, and everything was so fast. And now stuff's slowing down. People are taking a better look at it. Now's the time that you need to be honing in on your skills and sharpening your knife, because when it is time again, you need to be there and be able to deliver that service to your agent and earn your commission.
Well, and show transparency. I mean, one of the things, you and I met, it'll be 4 years in February.
Mm-hmm.
And how many years have I been beating up agents about getting exclusive buyer's agreements signed?
All 4.
All 4. And I get looked at like I am from another planet.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if things continue the way they're continuing,
you're not going to be able to operate with that one.
Exactly. And like, I hate to say it, but man, does it sucks being right sometimes, because I have literally had conversations about exclusive buyers agreements, because when things were moving quickly, you'd see the memes on Facebook. Oh, when a buyer, I ran this buyer to 3 or 4 homes, and then all of a sudden they go to write a contract, and oh, it turns out we have a cousin that's a real estate agent that we're going to do business with, and getting ghosted and showing homes to people that, end up at the 11th hour no longer doing business with you. And I would always say, why are you not sitting down and doing buyers presentations and getting these exclusive buyers agreements signed? And people were like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't want buyers to think that they're bound to me. If I'm not doing a good job and they go and work with someone else, that's on me. It was just insanity. So I have been pitching exclusive buyers agreements before I even came to Texas. And
Mm-hmm.
not every real estate agent, good ones weren't, but a lot of real estate agents looking at
Give
me
a
like
lot
I
of
had two
pushback.
heads.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's ridiculous. That's too salesy. And I think being a buyer's agent, that's another thing I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to weed out a lot of real estate agents, because in the current system that it is, the only people who are really selling anything are listing agents. You have to sell your commissions. You have to sell the price that you think that the property is going to, sell for. You have to defend what other buyers are trying to lowball offer. You're really the only one doing a lot of the sales, where as a buyer's agent, you're showing homes, and your commissions are negotiated already. What your business has really done a good job in the last year or two is making sure that y'all are no longer saying like, well, as a buyer's agent, you don't pay the commission,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not true.
Not true.
Not true at all.
In the
Maybe
agreement.
not out of pocket, you don't,
Yeah, but
but
it's
it's
still
baked
there.
in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the idea of basically what I have been screaming at the top of my lungs now for about 6 years. Let's get these buyers agents, sit down, show your value, educate these buyers. Do not show homes. It's like, don't show homes without pre-approvals. Don't show homes without exclusive buyers agreements. And,
It
you know,
protects both sides.
right.
I mean, because as a buyer, you want somebody who is going to go above and beyond, and taking those first hard steps is what it's going to require for you to have the best experience,
Right.
right? And so that's going to be what a lot of buyers are going to be looking out for, right? They don't want somebody that's just going to show them homes and, oh, I send them a home and then they tell me the info. They want people that are going out and hunting for them, people that are going out and finding the deals. It's going to make buyers agents have to advance and have to build their skills, because there's going to be less faith in their capabilities, right? You're going to have to show your worth
Yeah, if you can't sell yourself to your potential buyer, how are you going to negotiate once you're
for
under
them.
contract?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, this is the positive part of all of this for me. I think it has brought to light one of I wouldn't even call it problems, just one of the things that I think agents that look at this as a positive are going to go, you know what? I need to have those hard conversations up front. And a lot of agents have tiptoed around it. And I think it's going to help agents' businesses that embrace really locking down that buyer early on. I think it's going to help save you time. I think it's going to help save you headaches. And I think it's going to help create a lot of transparency in the industry. And I think that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. If we're all better and we all get with the program and do stuff the right way, people's perception of us will change.
Well, and that's one thing that Matt and I talked about today that, I'll say it again because we do different edits and I really want to get this out there. This is my cynical side. I in part think that, and it's interesting to me that Keller Williams was one of the main names that was a part of this, because real estate has been a thing over the last decade that brokerages have made appear to be very sexy. It is always made to look like, what real estate agent, there's brokerages that will literally hire anybody with a license.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how many transactions you've done. It doesn't matter what your experience level is. Come be a real estate agent, work your sphere of influence. So much flexibility in life. You go to these conventions and everything, and then what do? They went and took it a step further, and they said, hey, you don't even have to sell real estate now. You can do a couple deals. Start recruiting other agents, whether they're good or not. Put them in your downline. We're part of the cloud base, whatever you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got tons and tons of agents, They're everywhere. You make the job seem easy. You boast about your commissions. You're putting pictures of your vacations on there saying, look at me writing a contract from Tahiti.
It's pyramid scheme real estate.
Well, hear me out. I'm writing my contract from Tahiti. I know real estate agents in this local market that are taking pictures of themselves with Ferraris, with exotic cars, showing pools, doing all of this stuff. While meanwhile, the public is like, why am I paying,
For this guy to live this lavish life.
right? Like, and then while standing next to the Ferrari, it's like, be humble, humble hustle. So it's like, who are you? And I get it. Listen, this job is very hard. I'm in this business, right? But I'm not out there trying to project a lifestyle so that I can recruit other agents, so that I can get them in my downline and so on and so forth. And so I guess my whole rant consists of, are you surprised, real estate, that all of a sudden you pissed off enough people showing off how much money you're making, showing off your cars, showing off your lifestyle, doing all of that, like, and then wrapping it with a bow that says, I'm a humble hustler. Like, and I know you guys out there, you guys work your asses off. It's a real thing. But like,
it's always the mistakes of the few that have the downfall of many, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your average realtor works at us full time. They bust their butt. They take care of their friends and family. Very few of them build a $20K a month apartment locating business, and they can work from
But James,
anywhere.
everyone's a multi-million-dollar producer. You see it, every one of you.
It's real estate corn.
You are, yeah. It's porn, yeah, real estate porn, man. Like, everyone's a multi-million-dollar producer. Everybody this, everybody that, all wrapped up with this bow of like, I love helping people. And
in reality, it's hard, it's grimy. You
right.
got to bust your butt more often than not. Keep yourself busy. Try to actually keep a schedule and still have a personal life at the same time, right?
Yeah.
More agents should show that normal side of themselves, because it would allow people to see that, we're human beings too, and we work and we struggle, and we all
Well,
do
and maybe
that.
you wouldn't have found yourself in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because everybody thinks that you guys are just like Scrooge McDuck diving in gold coins, because you created that image.
Perception.
You, real estate, created that image to recruit other real estate agents. You really did. I mean,
to build your MLM.
Yeah, pretty much. And so that part of it to me is like, because let's just face it, it's human nature when, somebody appears to have way more than you and everything like that. You're going to start to do some investigations. You're going to start to figure out what's going on, and, you're going to get robbed.
I mean, and,
Right.
and it's very easy for somebody to have a transaction, hear from their agent that they met on whatever site, met them one time, wrote an offer, didn't talk to them again until closing, and then never talked to them again. And I just gave that person $15,000. What did they do for me?
Right.
And on the flip side, I myself driving an hour plus every week to go and show properties, and those people are, hey, we are so thankful, don't worry, we're not gonna, go with another agent. You've earned our business, and we see the work that you've put into it. If we had way more of those and way less of these, we wouldn't be in this scenario.
Right. And that's my point, is like, look, this is a blanketed statement. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate on this. Like, I hate real estate agents, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that, like, it's never good to, gloat, right? It just isn't. And, I'll relate it to, like, I mean, maybe this is a bad analogy, but it's like, there's a reason why, like, what is it, like, business owners and all this kind of stuff, like, they're not flashy because you don't want to draw attention to yourself. It's like, be professional, do your job, have happy customers, and then you have successfully created value, right? And no one's questioning how much money you're making or anything along those lines.
We just got too caught up in the social media follow.
I think so.
Like for like how many
MLM on, I need to recruit and do all of this. And, let's face it, for a short period of time, it worked, right? Because I've had people come up to me as a lender, nobody wants to be a lender, right? Nobody comes to me and says, hey, I noticed that you're in real estate. And you're a lender. I want to be a lender. And you know why? Because I think it's more of a personality thing, but like most of us aren't like posting
Flashy.
all of this stuff. We're not, driving exotic sports cars, but it's sometimes I feel like in the real estate community, you're doing it because there is a very, very,
There's a lot of eyeballs.
it's not even about eyeballs. There's a very, what's the word I'm trying to use? There's a push to recruit in real estate at all times, not only to recruit new agents, but to recruit other agents from other brokerages. I mean, when real estate agents meet other real estate agents, I'm there all the time. It's like, what do you think of where you're at? Blah, 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 blah. You should join
My team.
You should join
X.
EXP. You should join this one. You should join that one. And, I watch other agents almost like two dogs that just meet each other, sniff around. And it's like, is he or she just being friendly, or do they want to get me over there so that they can get me in their downline?
So they can start making, 1 point on every deal that I make.
And so you have to post that you're a multi-million-dollar producer. You have to post about how you're writing up a contract on a exotic island, and, staring at blue waters.
Because you want people to want a piece of what you have.
Exactly.
When in reality, it's all a facade.
Well, even whether it's a facade or not, the point you make, you want people to have a piece of it. Well, guess what? They're working on getting their piece. And that's what my point of this rant is like, I kind of feel like y'all did it to yourselves.
It's the King Midas story, right? If everything you touch is glamour and gold, eventually it's going to catch up to you.
Yep.
And a snake will eat its tail every once in a while. So
Yeah. So that's my take on the whole thing. Frankly, to tie it up, I mean, I don't think much is going to change for you guys except for a couple of additional disclosures. And I think it's going to weed out a lot of buyer's agents that are unwilling to, have those, what they personally consider tough conversations. Because I've definitely, like I've been saying, I have been shouting buyer's agreements at the top of my lungs for almost 6 years now, literally. I mean, I've done presentations on how to get them signed. And I have had agents look at me with nothing but fear and disgust in their face
about having that conversation.
And they're like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't need to do that. Like, I'm not a salesperson. I educate, I help people, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's interesting that even buyer's agents believe that they aren't charging anything. They are getting paid when the transaction closes. So they're not responsible for, I'm not charging you anything. And that helps people sleep at night. And I guess that was an easy way for everybody to
get along with it.
Right. And now you have to say, hey, just want to let you know I'm going to show you houses and I'm going to get paid. And here's what I'm going to make. And here's why you should pay me this. And for some people, I can totally see them be like, fuck, I'm out. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that at all. It's terrifying for people.
Going to be more market share for everybody else, I
Amen. Well, that's what's exciting. And I think for the ones that are willing to negotiate their commissions, show their value, it is going to be more market share. And I do think it'll be a little disruptive for a short period of time.
Yeah. Once all the dust settles.
Well, you're gonna have those buyer's agents that are gonna submit to, 1% buy side commissions and stuff like that. And you're gonna have these conversations now when you're showing buyers and you're getting exclusive buyer's agreements signed where you're gonna be like, well, James, I talked to so and so and they said they would show me houses and they're only making me sign a 1% agreement. And it's gonna create a little bit of margin compression, but right there in the beginning it'll be painful. But it's going to weed out the people because when you're closing deals on the buy side at 1%, pulling your fucking hair out, you're going to either get with the program. Well, yeah, you're either going to go broke or you're going to get with the program and start putting your foot down and saying, I'm not showing you houses for a 1% commission. It's not lucrative.
And the people who will are not going to give you a 3% level of service.
Well, and here's the other part I think about. If you're on the listing side and you're in a multiple offer situation, and you've got one buyer's agent that is operating with a 1% commission, you have another buyer's agent that's operating at a 3% commission, who do you feel like as the seller and the listing agent is going to create a better experience for you? The real estate agent that's getting paid or the real estate agent that's taking a 66% pay cut?
and does not have a vested interest in the deal getting through as
Right.
quickly and smoothly as possible.
And you're looking at 2 offers. They're offering the same amount, and you know one guy's getting 1% and another guy's getting 3%. You're like, I can almost guarantee that if we accept this offer here,
We're never going to hear from him again.
so now as a buyer in a competitive market, you think you're saving yourself money by not paying a higher buy-side commission, but guess what? You don't pay any commissions if you can't get under contract. And you're making offers one after another, and you're like, James, what's the problem? Why can't we get this? So like all of these listings are recognizing that you're barely paying me, and they think I'm going to do a dog shit job.
Mm-hmm. That's we did a training, and they used a synonym for commission as a success fee, right?
Yeah.
That fee, that commission only happens if you get the house that you want, right?
Mhm.
It only comes to me if you get exactly what you want and you close on this deal. Because there's a lot of opportunity for you to get under contract and get out and not buy a house.
Yeah.
That's only going to come if you get to that table and you sign that document and you tell the lender to hit the button and send the money over.
That's why we call them closing costs,
Right.
right?
You know, it's
They're costs that are only
associated with closing.
charged
Yeah.
at closing.
So yeah, I'm gonna start using the term success fee because really, it requires me to do a good enough job and to put you in a position to succeed.
Mhm.
And at that point, that's whenever I earn my fee. So
Well, my call to action on this one too that I've been thinking about is I have been doing these buyer consultation kind of presentations for real estate agents. I know I've done one for you, showing, role playing and showing real estate agents how to get your exclusive buyers agreements signed. And I would love the opportunity to meet with any agent that has an interest of being like, hey, let's role play. Give me your pitch. How would you get me to sign your exclusive buyers agreement? I promise you, I have spent so much time on it. You will love it, and it is yours to keep because I'm not a real estate agent. And then in addition to that, on January 9th, we are doing we've partnered with Craig Proctor, and some of you have been to some of their events as far as teaching. Most of them in the past have been about lead generation. But this one, because we've identified what's going on in the market, it's going to be a free 3-hour seminar January 9th in the Goosehead training room. We only have seats for 50. But what it's going to be is it's going to be all about lead conversion, because we recognize a lot of brokerages are enticing real estate agents with leads. Some of you are paying for your own leads. We want to run you through a 3-hour course on how to convert those leads. And we want to touch up on sales skills and everything along those lines that I think are going to be very, very good for buyers agents in locking these buyers down and getting these exclusive buyers agreements signed and being transparent and being upfront with what everything looks like so that you can write offers with confidence knowing that you're going to get your commissions and your buyers are willing to pay for it because you've shown value.
Yep. Now's the time to sharpen the skills.
Well, I know you'll be there.
Yes, sir, we will.
You got anything else you want to cover, man? We've been rapping for a minute.
Yeah, no, I'm all good. Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate your time on today.
Pulled
man.
off an hour and a half. You
Yeah.
covered on all your notes?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Sweet. Well, again, we got James Johnson, second time back. I'm encouraging all of you agents, connect with me, get on here, make some content. I mean, this is good stuff. We've got some wild amount of views. We just had a video that hit 14,000 views. And I forgot, I got to leave with one question for you because some of these are what's getting some crazy, attention.
Okay.
So, James, would you rather live in a house that always plays your favorite song when you enter the room, or a house that spontaneously breaks out into a dance party every Friday night?
I'm going to pick my favorite song every time I enter the house because that would be the most refreshing whenever you get there, especially if it's your favorite song. Obviously, it's going to get old, but at least when you pull up, if it's your favorite
Let's just
song.
say you could change it. You could change it whenever you wanted, but
It was just playing your favorite song of that day?
yeah, you open the door, favorite song comes
Oh,
on.
yeah, that's money.
Yeah, I think the dance party thing might be a little invasive.
Whenever
I'm not
your,
trying to have a dance
couch-
party every
yeah,
Friday.
And when your couch just gets up off the floor and just starts dancing, that could be pretty freaky too.
I got one more for you that we've been
Cool.
asking a lot of people that's a lot of fun. So, you ever worked in a restaurant?
Yeah.
All right. So, in a restaurant, you've got the little soda gun where it's got a bunch of buttons on it and you got C for Coke and S for Sprite, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, cranberry, whatever on there. If your index finger was like that gun and could shoot 3 liquids, what 3 liquids, infinite amounts, what 3 liquids would your index finger shoot?
So this is my second time hearing this.
Okay.
So I've already put in some good thought to
All
it.
right.
All right. So number 1 is water.
Okay.
Because obviously you could always have water.
Yep.
Number 2, hydrochloric acid.
Okay.
Because if you ever need to get out of a place or
Yep.
burn through something or protect yourself in life or death situation,
Interesting. That's a first.
you got some pretty
got some
pretty
solid
diabolical
defense.
stuff there. And then whether or not this counts, maybe some liquid gold, just always to be able to create some money.
Liquid gold.
Yeah.
So the last 2 I haven't
Molten.
heard yet.
Yeah.
The ones that I've heard that have been pretty good that I feel like for me is number 1. This is the best answer. Gas. I can just fill up my gas tank for free anytime I want. Just boom. So I'd shoot gas. I'd shoot. The other one that I liked was coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. It'd be nice to just have coffee right there in an infinite supply.
Just Americano, just
And
latte.
then, man, I love Lone Star beer.
There you go. Some beer.
The only beer that makes you successful and better looking, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they all say.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because you and I are going to a gala for Austin Smiles, which is a charity organization that raises money for children that are born with cleft lips that can't get the surgery, and so they cover that, and it's a great charity, and I think it's a great cause. But Dale Watson is going to be playing there, so that I've met Dale quite a few times. Great guy. But Dale is sponsored by Lone Star Beer.
And there we go.
And he always has a lot of good things to say about it. So that's one of his, he'll stop in mid-show and he'll say Lone Star Beer. And then it's always something like the only beer that makes you more successful and good looking. So Lone Star would be the third one that I would choose. But that's going to be a fun event. And I don't think this will make it out before that event happens. But
we're going to have a good time.
For sure. It's going to be a great time. You ever seen Dale?
No, sir.
Oh, you're going to love it. It's going to be good.
Excited for it.
All right, brother. Let's wrap it up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you schedule your next time for next month, man. We got to get you in here. It's like getting to the gym, working out, right?
Yep, got to do it.
All right. Take it easy.
Yes, sir.